Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bad Luck Gamer, and today we have, honestly, an archetype that took me a couple times to read through before I fully understood exactly how awesome this archetype is. And it's one I'm actually genuinely very excited about, despite its, how to put it? I guess it's very narrow profile of use. But what it does do and what it does add does in fact really create this sense that the job you are sent out to do can be used in more than just very niche once off kind of situations. Today we're going to be talking about the Demolitionist and how it really adds to the game, and not only that, but reading it through, the Demolitionist is actually really good for alchemists as well, as it not only does this archetype include a lot of feats from the alchemist class feat section, but in addition, it changes just the aesthetic. No longer are you a bomber by throwing bombs, you become a bomber by being able to channel your bombs and other alchemical items into deadly explosive force. But before we get into any of that, I just want to remind you all that, well, if you follow, like, subscribe, do whatever, it really does help out the channel. I've been going through a lot personally, and I need all the help in getting my momentum back, obviously. Not only that, but I do really have a lot planned for the channel coming up. There's a lot of great things. We do have a Bloodborne one-shot coming up at the end of this month for Halloween. So if you're interested in seeing something like that, I would check it out. But let's go ahead and get into the dedication itself. So there are no requirements to get into the Demolitionist feat other than the fact that you need to be level 2. So to get the dedication feat itself, you just need to be level 2, pretty easy. And when you pick up the dedication feat, you get two things. One, you get engineering lore, or if you already have engineering lore, you can instead get expert in engineering lore instead, which is really good. On top of that, you get an additional feature that is really good, and honestly, if you're playing an alchemist, just picking up just the dedication feat would be really good, especially if you're not playing with the bonus archetype dedication feats. Though I do recommend everyone use the bonus archetype dedications as they do enhance the game. But what you get is called set explosives. You take one or two bombs and you tie it to some kind of inanimate object, and then you set a timer that can go up to a minute, and you can set it for things like at the end of my next turn, at the beginning of this creature's turn, yada yada, whatever. It is 2 actions. So, if you're near the object, you can set the bomb and then move away, and then you can set the bomb off at the end of a turn. So if an enemy comes to approach from a direction and they have to end close to the bomb's proximity, well, you can do a little bit of extra damage while doing some good damage to the object itself. Predominantly, what this feature is used for is to do a lot of damage to an inanimate object. Now, the 2 bombs add their damage together before any resistances or weaknesses are applied. And this is really good because an object that might be inherently resistant to, say, fire damage can still take a good amount of damage from an alchemist fire if you're doing 2 alchemist fires together, though that wouldn't be optimal. The best part about this is, though, is that the object that you tie the objects to gets its hardness reduced by an amount equal to half your level. My apologies. Equal to your level, which is even better. It's really good feature, and what it does is the biggest thing that causes things like doors, walls to get in players' way is the innate hardness of these objects. They're really hard to get through as they reduce your damage. It can make it so that it takes several turns to break down a door, which is very inconvenient. This eliminates most of that problem. And any creatures that are adjacent to the object also suffer the combined splash damage of your 2 bombs before applying resistances or weaknesses, which is potentially really good, though not something that will happen that much. You can still apply it in a way that it does feel good. Though you do have to set the time when you set the bomb. You can't just use a reaction to trigger it. That's a different feat, which we'll get into later. Now, overall, this is really good. And Oh, something else I should mention as well. The feature itself doesn't allow for any additions to splash or splash damage that require you to make some kind of strike or whatever first. The example they give here is you can't use something like calculated splash with these because you're not actually throwing the bombs, you're detonating them, which is different. There's a feat that kind of fixes this a little bit later, but just know that you can't necessarily add a bunch, especially if you're an alchemist, though you will be able to at a later point. This feature is really good overall, and just for the base dedication, this will allow you to break through walls and doors and whatever else you need to break much more easily, which I'm sure your DM is absolutely going to love. Now, the Demolitionist also gets access to a few feats from the Alchemist, so rather than going over those here in this video, I'll save y'all some time just by going over the list of what they give you. So at 4th level, you can get Demolition Charge. At 6th level, you get access to Calculated Splash. At 8th level, you get Directional Bombs. And at 12th level, you get Expanded Splash. All which are really, really good feats and help expand what you can do with the Demolitionist as you go on. But let's go ahead and get to the next actual Demolitionist feat. At level 4, you get access to Safety Measures. And this feat's, it's okay. So generally what happens is if you have any kind of cover against an enemy bomb, for whatever reason, you add an amount of resistance to that bomb's damage equal to half your level, plus a value equal to your circumstance bonus to AC granted to you by the cover you're taking. So if it's standard cover, it's a +1. If it's greater cover, it's a +2. Or no, I think it's like partial standard and greater is 1, 2, and 3. Either way, it doesn't matter. This is added to the resistance onto half of your level from the bomb. That's okay, I guess. It means, so how cover works, and the reason why this kind of doesn't make the most sense, is if you have cover and an enemy strikes you in cover, you get a bonus to your AC. So they can still technically hit you. So if you're behind cover and a bomb would strike you, you can reduce that damage. Not a lot of enemies reduce or throw bombs at all, really, in the game. It's very tragic, actually. But this could be handy in some certain scenarios, and I think some APs have more enemies that are in the alchemical line that might throw bombs at you. I think bandits inherently get access to lightning bombs or the thunder bombs or whatever, but this isn't going to come up a lot. The other good benefit is you automatically get the benefits of this damage reduction to your own bombs even if you don't have cover. So for whatever reason your own bomb goes off and you're in the blast radius for whatever reason, you can add half your level in resistance to the bomb's damage. Yay! So even when you do something really dumb, you can at least not take all of the damage. It's a weird feat. It's a feat that I'm not overly hot about. It's okay, and I guess it's better if you're playing a very gung-ho, very uncautious kind of bomber character. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some situations this might come in handy. I just don't see it personally. Next up is Explosive Entry, which is very interesting. So for 2 actions, you can rig up I think it's just an explosive. You also need to be Master in Engineering Lore, which is very important. That means that you should be upping your engineering lore. In fact, this is a really good opportunity to take the additional lore feat. It allows you to pick a lore skill that automatically levels up with you as you increase in level. That would be perfect for this kind of feat, or this kind of archetype dedication in general. But at level 7, and this isn't a skill feat, which is weird. So why is it level 7? That's interesting. That's very interesting. Why do they have a feat that's level 7? That's not a skill feat. That may have been errated, and unfortunately, I don't think I can look it up right now. That's fine. So more or less, level 7. If skill feat, cool. If not, whatever. It allows you to, for 2 actions, you rig up a bomb to produce an explosion to open an object. So more or less what it is you use the set explosion action, which means you can use 1 or 2 bombs, and you can use your engineering lore rather than athletics to force open a door, a chest, a window, what have you. Now, this is kind of one of those things where it is loud and it is intentionally destructive. So if you get a crit success on the Force Open, you get a success instead, which is the only instance this ever happens in Pathfinder 2e. Normally, when you Force Open, you get a critical success, you don't damage the object you're attempting to break into. But you can't do that with explosives. So if you get a critical success, it counts as just a normal success instead. And not only that, but if the bombs you use give you an item bonus to the attack rolls normally, you can actually apply that item bonus to the engineering lore check to force open the object, which is really cool, and it makes your kind of scrawny alchemist character or whatever bombing character you intend on using more likely to open up chests, windows, or whatever without the need of a strong barbarian around to come and do it for you. It's really good and perfect for an alchemist to help round out what you can do for the party, because now you can be helpful in another set of mostly common situations. Force Open actually comes up quite a bit, especially if the players are looking for it. At level 8, you get Controlled Blast, and I'm going to look over here because it's a lot to remember, so I apologize for not looking at the camera for this one. Either way, so Controlled Blast, what it does is if you have directional bomb feats, you can use that with either Set Explosions or Demolition Charge, which you can pick up from Alchemist at 4th level at the earliest. And even though you didn't throw the bombs, those extra feats that normally work only when you make an attack roll with the bombs do apply to the Controlled Blast as long as you have the Controlled Blast feat. So that's really good because it further enhances your ability to break open objects, to do damage to things or creatures, and this becomes a little bit better for a feat later on. And for Demolition Charge, you know what, I feel like this one is really important, so, we're going to bring it up right here. For Demolition Charge, it allows you to set up a bomb as a 1-minute activity, and then trigger it as a reaction when a creature enters a space near the bomb. This is really good because this allows you to gain the benefits that you have for your alchemical bombs when it comes to splash or whatever to this effect, which is really good. And it makes your Demolition Charge feat from Alchemist even better. Though if any of the feats do add to splash damage, it only applies to one of the bombs you place if you're using Set Explosives. And the increased area for most of these bombs do apply to all bombs placed if you're using Set Explosives or whatever. So this is a really good feat because it allows you to add together a lot of what the feat does really well, which is setting bombs up to be used at a convenient time, and then now you can expand those with later feats, especially those from Alchemist. This is why the Demolitionist is more of like a Alchemist subclass or sub-archetype than it is actually something that'd be useful for anyone else. Could you use it as anyone else? Sure, and you can get a lot of benefits. I mean, Demolition Charge, Calculated Splash, Directional Bombs, and Expanded Splash all on the Alchemist, tree can be picked up by this archetype, and if you're using the bonus archetype feats rule, you can pick those all up and be whatever other class you want. You can be an inventor, you could be any of the other like intelligence-based classes that need maybe a little bit more help when it comes to athletic stuff, or maybe you're a wizard who wants to use bombs because they also are trained in alchemy and need it for force open or to do some extra splash damage, set up some cool traps. There's a lot of really cool things, but we got one more feat here before we finish off with the Demolitionist. The last feat is Collapse Wall, and this one is really good, especially for level 12 feat. So what it does is if you set up a Demolition Charge or a Set Explosives, you get a reaction that you can use to collapse a wall down onto a target enemy to bury them in rubble and to do a fair amount of damage. This is a really, really good feature because what it does, first of all, it lets you use Set Explosive as a reaction, which is good. Though you can't hit the enemy with it, instead you can use it to create a moment where an enemy becomes showered in rubble and rock or whatever the wall is made of, and they'll need to dig themselves out. So more or less what happens is whatever damage you do to the wall, as long as it gets the structure HP down below the break threshold, so half of the structure HP typically, the wall will collapse on the enemy that triggered it. The enemy has to come adjacent to Yeah, creature moves into the bomb splash. Oh, it's just any creature in the bomb splash area. So this actually stacks with the expanded splash, or the what's it called? The yeah, expanded splash feat, which is really really good because I think that's like a 10-foot radius or a 10-foot emanation. I'm not 100% sure. It's really solid though. And what this does is it all the damage you do to the wall, the enemy needs to make a basic reflex saving throw against your class DC or spell DC, or they take the damage to the wall. And since it's a basic reflex saving throw, if they critically fail, they take twice the damage you did to the wall from the pouring rubble. And if they succeed, or if they crit succeed, obviously they take half or no damage, and there's an additional feature. Now, if they fail the check, they have to dig themselves out of the rubble, spending one interact action to dig themselves out of the rubble before they can continue. If they crit fail, they have to spend two interact actions to dig themselves out of the rubble. That means that if they crit fail the reflex saving throw, they've wasted their turn, because this is a trigger and it only happens on the enemy's turn. That means that, well, I guess unless they started in that turn, don't they have to move? Yeah, the creature has to move into the splash area. So I guess it could also be move inside of as well if the GM was nice enough to interpret it that way. In any regard, so the stride action they're using to get to wherever they're trying to get to, plus the 1 to 2 actions to dig themselves out, you can waste an entire enemy turn. And with set explosives, the damage it deals is not reduced by the hardness, or because you reduce an amount of hardness equal to your level. So at this level, that's 12 hardness. There's not a lot of objects with more than 12 hardness, honestly. And so that non-reduced damage is applied to the enemy as well. It's really good. Now, it is bludgeoning damage, so enemies that have some kind of resistance to bludgeoning damage don't have that reduced in any way, but they're still buried in rubble, and they still will probably take some damage. And at this late in the game, bombs do a nasty amount of damage. So overall, this kind of really boils down to, and it's combined, because if it's set explosives, it's 1 or 2 bombs. 1 or 2 bombs worth of that's 1 or 2 bombs worth of damage. I didn't even think about that. That's 1 or 2 bombs worth of damage being rained down on an enemy that, if you have expanded splash, that's a pretty big area, honestly. So yeah, there's a lot you can really do. And you have to be, also, I should mention, you have to be within 30 feet of where you set the charge in order to detonate it. Some kind of remote detonator thing. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think that's a big issue, honestly. I think it's a really good feat overall. And this is the glory that is the Demolitionist. It is a really good archetype that can make even certain combat situations really beneficial. If you need to destroy something and hurt things at the same time, no longer now do you have to make the choice. There's a lot of actually encounters where it's like, you need to destroy the thing. Okay, well, I'm going to, either dedicate to fighting the enemies up there trying to actively kill us, or go detonate or go destroy the thing. Now, you can kind of do both at the same time. It's really good. And because the Demolitionist takes so much from the Alchemist, with the bonus archetype rule set, this is essentially just extra Alchemist feats plus some on top of your Alchemist, making your Bomber Alchemist that much more powerful, which honestly is really cool. This is something I think a lot of people kind of blow by because Demolitionist seems very situational. But there's a lot of situations where these abilities, these charges, setting up a combat just a little bit beforehand, you can use these in a lot of situations, especially if there's walls, which a lot of places have, honestly, or structures that you can, attempt to bargain with your DM to allow you to knock down on the enemies. I think this is a really good archetype overall, and this makes the Alchemist even stronger, actually, because the two features blend together really, really well. But you tell me what you think. Have any of you used the Demolitionist? I'm very curious. You can actually go into the description and join our Discord, and go to the Pathfinder 2e build section to give us your best Demolitionist build. I'm actually very interested to see some of these Demolitionist builds, and of course, I'll be reading the comments as well. Don't be afraid, algorithm, do all that kind of stuff, mention in the comments. But we are also always looking at the different builds are coming into our Discord. So if you want to check that out, that's the place to be. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.